Well, I hope everybody was partying like it was, 1991, 1990, whatever. The Cincinnati Bengals have won a playoff game, and they did so in front of their home crowd. They did so in dramatic fashion. They beat the Raiders at home in the wild card round, advanced to the divisional round to take on the Tennessee Titans in Nashville. We've got a big show lined up for such a big week and for so many big reasons. I'm Anthony Cosenza, and I am extremely jealous of my co-host this week because he was there in person, and we're going to hear about it. John, man, are you still just glowing about this thing and the result of everything that transpired this weekend?
Look, I feel like a lot of players say that you get into the NFL to play in the big moments, to play in the playoffs and the Super Bowls. You get in the podcast industry in the NFL to talk about playoff wins. You know, this is why we're here, right? We've been doing this. You've been doing this for 5-6 years. I've been doing this for 3, and we've never had a show predicated around this exact topic. But 66,000 people can say that they were there. But just like the Freezer Bowl, I feel like a lot more people are going to say that they were there, or at least in the city of Cincinnati. And you know what, Anthony, if you want to say that you were there, I'm not going to hold it against you. I'm not going to call you out on that. So yeah, just, it's nice to have that experience, you know, like my dad and his brothers and my grandpa were at the Freezer Bowl for that moment. And I was there in PBS for that. So that was pretty freaking cool.
That's awesome. Well, I want to hear all about it. I was there with you in spirit. I was not there, unfortunately, in physical presence. I wish I was there. Just couldn't make it happen. But hey, if they get to SoFi or, host, I don't think they're able to host an AFC Championship game at this point. But, if they get to SoFi, I will, I'll do what I can to be there. We are set to be joined potentially in a few minutes by Ickey Woods, last week's ruler of the jungle. Good luck charm. We're hoping to be joined by him either by video chat or phone. We've been talking with him, so hopefully we get him on in just a little bit here. And we're very excited to talk to him about a number of different things. But before we do, John, we wanted to kind of just, vent's not the right word, but talk about our experience for a couple minutes in terms of what we witnessed. I mean, we usually break down the game and what happened and this and that. This is a little bit of a different beast here because we're talking about something that we have waited for so long, that has been held over the Bengals' heads, the Bengals fans' heads for so long in terms of playoff futility and whatnot. I have to say, unfortunately, especially towards the end, I was enjoying the game for about 3 quarters and whatnot. And then it got to crunch time. Things were getting a little too close for my liking. The Bengals were not shutting the door. The Raiders were hanging around. And I started to get, I hate to admit it, I started to get those old feelings, those here we go agains, those, oh man, now they're going to just do it in just they're going to lose in a more dramatic fashion, etc. I kept trying to tell myself, different team, different coach, different quarterback, all that stuff. Those old thoughts kind of crept in. But as that final drive unfolded, and as Jermaine Pratt corralled that interception, it was joy, but it was relief. It was just like, oh my gosh, finally, because it's kind of like, if not now, when? I mean, I know this team is a budding team and potentially a dynasty in the making, but I just felt like that was a good matchup for them. It was favorable for them. It was a team they had beaten that year. They were riding a hot streak and seemingly hitting their stride in a big way. It just felt like, if not, then when? And so I was obviously relieved. I watched it with my brother, my parents, my nephew, my kids, and it was pretty cool afterwards. We were just like hugging and just laughing and, oh my gosh, I can't, finally. I had an insane amount of texts, an insane amount of messages just from people, kind of coming out of the woodwork. They just knew how much it meant to me and how much it meant to my brother and all of that. So it was just really, really cool. We just kind of had our own little intimate group that was all rooting for the Bengals. And, we were just so happy. And after all of the things that we have witnessed as fans and covering this team for Cincy Jungle and on this show, it was just such a relief. And I was so happy for so many of those players. And not only those players, but people like Ickey Woods, former players who were there in attendance, who said, wow, this is goosebump type of stuff. Ickey Woods, Tim McGee, and others said that, wow, that was quite the atmosphere and quite a moment for this team.
How are your kids watching? Are you raising them as Bengals fans, or are you letting them make their own decision?
I mean, I'm forcing some stuff on my kids in terms of like little jerseys and stuff like that, but He kind of just likes watching football a little bit. The oldest one does, at least. The youngest one does. He doesn't, he's way too young. He doesn't get it. But the oldest he's kind of into it a little bit, but he's also, he's not even 5 yet. He's just kind of squirrely. So he likes to run around and, be a little kid too. But, he'll hang out and watch a little football, and he knows about the Bengals and he knows about some of the players and whatnot. But it's just, kind of a family thing, hanging out with family and watching the Bengals and watching a big win.
Well, as long as they're with you, man, I feel like they're not going to be like the babies that were born in the late 80s and maybe in 1990 where they have to wait 31 years to see another one if they care so much about it eventually. Maybe they'll get to that point, maybe not, but it really did feel like just throughout the entire day it was just a different vibe compared to past playoffs. And the last one I went to was against the Jets, and I don't really remember much of that just because it was such an ugly game. My only memory of the first Steelers playoff game was at walking out of the stadium, there was a fight between a Bengals fan and the Steelers fan outside of the stadium. Man. I mean, yeah, after the Palmer injury, basically everyone blacked out and like no one remembers what Kidna did in that game.
Yeah.
But honestly, I think the reason why I never felt like the other shoe was going to drop, I think I was just more drunk than I thought I was. And I just been drinking all day. I've drank a lot of seltzers, and a couple people gave me some beers as well. But no, it from the night before at Holy Grail with all the people who met up with the Locked On meetup to before the game on game day to during the game, and then the after the game celebration post game was it was just all perfect. And I just want to give a shout out to every single person that I met and talked with or saw again in that 36-hour span. I want to list them all because they all made that experience so great for me. So in chronological order, shout out to all these people: Malik Wright, Logan Fulmer, both of TWSN, Brian Bosridge, big Senior Bowl guy. We might have him on in a couple weeks to give us some insight there. You all know Seth Reese, the PFF graphic design king. Aaron Bacot, who's a Bengals fan. He listens to the show. Shout out to Aaron. He's got a great insight on the game as well. Our boy Zim, Evan McPhillips, Lindsey Patterson, who was definitely feeling herself Friday night at Holy Grail. James Rappian, some call him James Rapine. Russ Heldman, absolute party animal of SI, all Bengals. The commissioner herself, Yaz, my guy SD from Dingle House in Westchester. Rebecca Toback and her husband, who converted her to Bengals fandom in the first place. And if that doesn't happen, I never write for Cincy Jungle in the first place. Two guys who bought me Bud Lights at Holy Grail. And then on game day, the Bengalorian and his friend Jesse, Clay Winstead, Joe Goodberry and his better half Jessica, Lorenzo Sarice and his better half Suzanne, Darth Noob Sabit, I never learned his real name, but finally met him in person, Blake Jewell, also of Bengals, and finally, the reason I got to go to the game in the first place, shout out Ron Spatola and his significant other Misty, as well as his friend Mike and his significant other Missy. I watched the game with them in section 232, and really, Anthony, like when they took the lead, I believe it was a 10-point lead, like middle of the fourth quarter before I think the Raiders got like a field goal and the Bengals got the ball back. I think when they took that lead, I just felt like it was over. I felt like it was enough for them to hold on. Just the vibe, just how the team was that day and how the moment never seemed too big and they got off to a nice start. And I know that they didn't convert some touchdowns late in the game, but it never really felt like the game was out of their hands. And I never really felt like, oh man, this is going to happen again. That entire last drive, I felt like something was going to happen with the defense. I didn't know it was going to come down to the very last yard where on the 1 yard line, Jermaine Pratt mixed that interception, but it really did feel different. And that's what led to this overjoyous sense of relief when after that final snap, it was just an explosion in Paul Brown Stadium. And everyone is just taking it all in awe and in jubilation. And I remember walking out of the stadium and everyone's chanting "Who Day" down the steps. And I just kind of had to gather myself because I just had memories of the previous times in those situations where it didn't end that way. And then just to see it all happen like that and to see just the reaction, I just had to just take a moment just to realize, how we got to this point and where the team can go from here. And I think that's like the big thing, because this is really the start of something potentially great. It's not just going to be this one playoff win and 31 more years of futility. No, they're building something right now, and it's definitely far from over. Like if it doesn't happen the next week for the next playoff win, it's probably going to happen next year. And if it doesn't happen next year, It's probably going to happen 2 years from now. Like, they are not done. And I think that's exactly what Joe Burrow wanted to relay to the media during this week when he said, yeah, I downplayed, like, it was a nice win, but we got bigger goals. But like, this is the new standard. And I feel like everyone, once that win happened, they kind of just accepted that. Like, okay, they can do this. They're all on the same page now, because that win in itself, it probably meant more to the city and the fans in general, more than just the team. Like, I mean, just think about it. Like, when you have a guy in Joe Burrow who's been in these situations before, and he's done it at the biggest stages wherever he's been, he's not just thinking about winning one playoff game. He's not thinking about the importance of just advancing in the wild card. And I think the whole team kind of realizes that, and they sense that cool, calm collectiveness, that ability to relate to everybody, and how that can galvanize an entire group with every single demographic that you can think of in the locker room. So once they all kind of accepted that, it was no more giant monkey on the back. But the fans and everyone outside of the locker room doesn't know that. They don't feel that because they don't experience it firsthand. But then they see it unfold in front of them in the biggest stage of that stadium's history, and the biggest win of that stadium's history. And now everybody starts to buy in and sense that, yeah, like, this is for real. This isn't arrogance. This isn't talking out of your butt. Like these guys have bigger aspirations than just one historic 31-year drought-ending playoff win. And now everyone's on the same page. Honestly, like, this is more than just one playoff win. This is more than just going one and done. Now they're moving on to a good team in the Tennessee Titans, and now we're going to go from here.
We're going to be joined by Ickey Woods in just a few minutes here, and that's going to be a cool chat just to get his perspective on things. I wanted you to kind of have the floor there, John, because you were there and you experienced this thing firsthand. And I saw the videos. The one by Wheels, is that Nick? I told him, I'm like, man, yeah, dude. I'm like, you got to come on this show, and we're going to play that video. We're going to promote everything. He's killing the video game there.
An absolute goat.
And yeah, and I don't mean video game like he's killing the video montage game. I mean, he's doing awesome stuff, and you just see all of these people. And one of the guys in that video was Nick Suberling. I don't know if you knew that or not.
Mm-hmm, yep.
Running around his family room, and I was like, of course, I was thinking about my family and my brother when they first won, and there was a small handful of people, no offense to the listeners, that I was really, really thinking about. I thought about you because you were there. I thought about some of our other fellow podcasters and whatnot that were there, and I was just so happy for everybody. But I thought about those guys, Mickey and Nick and Scott, that I did that show with inside the jungle for so many years, and just great guys. Those are some of the first guys that I thought about in terms of the win there, and seeing Nick doing victory laps around his house with his kids, and so many other fans that we know that were just going off, and so much emotion in the crowd. It's just a really, really cool thing. And I wasn't there physically, but I was there in spirit, and I just, I'm just really, really happy for that team. And like you said, it doesn't feel like that's it. It doesn't feel like that's the ceiling for this team. Some people are saying that this week. I listened to Colin Cowherd. I know he's not everybody's favorite, but he does believe that the Bengals do have a chance to win this weekend. He's kind of said that, but he also has backhanded complimented them with that by saying he thinks they've got basically the weakest roster of any team left in the postseason. So, I mean, there's kind of a dichotomy of opinions here, but I think that the Bengals do have a chance to win this game. We'll be talking about that in a little bit. But like you said, Joe Burrow just is playing out of his mind, processing the field at an elite level, to use a terrible cliche. He is just processing what defenses are showing him. He has not had a turnover, John, in the last 5 games he has played, or 6 total weeks. He didn't play in the Cleveland game. Unbelievable. Just unbelievable quarterback performance. I'd like to think he can sustain it, but we'll see. It's a very high level to try and keep sustaining, but as long as he keeps doing that, this team's got a shot in every single game they play, no matter the venue, no matter the opponent.
This is the cool thing about the Bengals in general, because we knew that the Bengals were going to learn from some of the things that they saw when they first played the Raiders back in week 11 and why they couldn't really pass the ball down the field very much. And just in general, like the passing game was limited in that regular season game. And we knew that they were going to make some adjustments on how to better attack that defense now that they saw it from the first time. And that's exactly what they came out with. You look at 2012 when they played the Texans the second time in the playoffs. AJ Green doesn't see a single target in the entire first half of that game. And then when they tried to feature him, it was just a little bit too late. Ja'Marr Chase gets 4 touches on the very first drive, and all of them end up in first downs. 4 targets, 3 catches for 3 first downs, and then 6 touches overall in the first half. All of them go for first downs, and Chase has a phenomenal game. And honestly, Joe Burrow, like, that's the thing. Joe Burrow played pretty damn well, specifically for just his first playoff game, and that's a rare thing to see that efficient and clean of a game for a quarterback playing in his first game in the postseason. But he could have even played better, and like there wasn't a lot of explosive opportunities for this offense. T. Higgins barely got involved. I think he had a couple drops to go with only his 1 catch, and Ja'Marr Chase was really their only production outside of some of the cover 3 beaters underneath some of those coverages. So they came out with a good plan, and Burrow played obviously very well, but you know that this offense is capable of doing much more. They're going to need to do much more for the rest of the postseason.
Well, we've been yakking about our experiences, respective differing experiences. John at the game, myself watching from home. And as teased at the beginning of the episode, we have a very special guest who was the VIP, the good luck charm, and everything in between. Mr. Ickey Woods joining us, ruler of the jungle for the wild card game. Mr. Woods, how you doing? Wild week for you. Thanks for making some time for us.
Oh, doing wonderful, man. Hanging in there. Happy to my Bengals finally got that monkey off their back.
Well, happy to be talking with you. We want to hear about your experiences, ruler of the jungle, and a couple of other things. But most importantly, we want to highlight the charity in honor of your son, the Javonte Woods Foundation. We've already started to get some super chats in the YouTube. What we're going to do is we're going to donate every single super chat. We're going to make a donation as a show, hopefully a very large and impactful donation to the Javonte Woods Foundation. So if other listeners out there, if you want to make a sizable YouTube super chat, if you want to make it for $31, $30 for either one of Ickey Woods jerseys or the curse being broken 31 years, make it that. Let's make an impact for the Javonte Woods Foundation. We'll find out more about that in a second. But I guess, Mr. Woods, what I want to ask you first and foremost, tell us about your experience as ruler of the jungle. It's a brand new thing, very, very special that you were the guy for the postseason. Well, I'd like to kind of hear about how the Bengals front office approached you about that, and just your experience throughout the entire game and that pregame experience rallying that fired up crowd.
Oh, man, it was great, man. They contacted me through Paul Brown, which is one of the owners of the Bengals, called me and, said that they were doing a new thing called the Ruler of the Jungle, and they wanted me to be the ruler of the jungle for the AFC wild card game. And, I was like, oh, okay, great. So I went out there and said they just want me to get the fans hyped up, get everybody into it, get the crowd ready to go. And the jungle was rocking, man. And, we came home with the victory, a much-needed victory to get that, finally get that monkey off our back for 31 years.
So, Ickey, you gave us all a pretty good Ickey shuffle up there next to the throne. And I think CJ Uzomah gave his best effort after his first quarter touchdown, and he combined it with the gritty. I don't know if that's sacrilegious to you, combining both of those pieces, but the gritty specifically is becoming this generation's Ickey shuffle a bit here in Cincinnati. Do you think you could have pulled it off in your playing days?
Yeah. He did a great reminiscence, and I, thanked him for honoring me, man, just to, do my dance and then throw the gritty in there. It was masterful, man. It got the crowd pumped up and got everybody rocking and rolling, man. I was real happy. These guys thought enough to think of me and do my dance to get everybody riled up and ready to go.
Talking with Ickey Woods, former Bengals running back and wild card ruler of the jungle, the team's good luck charm this week to break the curse. happy to have him back on the show. Ickey, the last time you were on this show, it actually wasn't in 21, it was in 2020. We were talking about the direction of the team and all kinds of different things. What did you – it's okay to be honest here. What were your expectations for this team going into this year? Obviously, Joe Burrow coming off the knee injury, some questions about the roster, the offensive line.
Yeah, I had them I had them 6-11. Actually.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, I didn't have big expectations at all, and they surprised me early on and won a few games that I thought they wouldn't win, and then they lost a few games that I thought they would win. So, they kept going, and then they turned it on after the bye week, and started winning some games and got themselves in a good predicament, and now they're in the divisional round of the playoffs. So that's it's great to see, and hopefully we can go down there and stun all the critics and take down them Tennessee Titans.
Well, we appreciate your honesty with that preseason prediction. So, like, what was your concerns going into the season, and where have the Bengals kind of surprised you the most with how they've kind of turned out now?
Well, they surprised me the most on the defensive side of the ball and the offensive line. They didn't play great, but they played better than I thought they would. And Joe Burrows and that Jamar Chase combination, man, just shined. And not only Chase, but Higgins, and then Tyler Boyd, and then Uzama. So they got a lot of weapons on that side of the ball, man. But the real surprise was defense was able to stop a few people, and defense was able to win a few games for us late in the game. Like the Raiders game, they got the interception and won that game for us to break the curse. So defense showed up and was real surprised on the effectiveness of Hubbard and Henderson. It was very much a surprise, man. Those guys are playing some football now. It was a very pleasant surprise. Let me put it that way.
Yeah, some of those outside free agent acquisitions have really paid off. Talking with Ickey Woods here, going to hear about the Javonte Woods Foundation. If you are listening live or after the fact, please submit a donation through one of our live chats, if you will, or directly to the charity. But we're gonna make a donation as a show to the Javonte Woods Foundation. We'll hear about that in just a minute. Ickey, fans are superstitious, that, and I know especially Bengals fans. And so we've talked about this curse, the curse of Bo Jackson, the curse, 31 years. I'm curious, from a former player and a player who was on the team at the time of not only the heyday of this team, but also when this curse kind of spawned. Did you actually kind of believe in a quote unquote curse? Did you, as a player? I mean, what kind of goes through your mind when you hear that phrase from Bengals fans or all kinds of different media outlets covering the team?
Well, I don't really think it was a curse, because, well, it may have been because the guys had games that they should have won, like the Pittsburgh game. They should have won that Pittsburgh playoff game, and then they, do the bonehead, hit the guy coming over the middle, and then Pac-Man Jones gets another 15-yard penalty. And, just the guys just couldn't get their heads together, man. But, this team is a whole different team, a whole different atmosphere. You got a lot of young players on this team who have come from winning programs, so they know what it's like to win big games. So, and I think that's the biggest turnaround for us, is we got guys on this team now who's come from winning programs and who knows how to, win big ball games. Joe Burrow's won a national championship. Chase, Jamar Chase, and Higgins. And so those guys know what it's like to win in big games. So, they don't have that stigmatism that they've never won anything. So bringing that new culture in here, Zach Taylor coming in and, building the culture from the ground up. I thought it would take him another year or two to get it done, but surprisingly, in his third year, he's got us in the divisional playoffs.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, they're the first Bengals team to win a playoff game since the team that you were on, and just comparing this team to those four Bengals teams that you were part of, do you see any major similarities as to why this team can go forward in the playoffs and not just win one game?
Yeah. I think just that explosiveness that they have on offense, they can pretty much score with anybody. And then, defense shows up at a time that it needs to. So we'll see if they can stop that Tennessee's running game. I think in this game, if they can get out early, and because Tennessee's not a good come-from-behind team, so if we can get up early and force Tannehill to throw the ball a little bit, I think we'll have a chance to hopefully win this game.
Talking with Ickey Woods, this past weekend's ruler of the jungle, a fan favorite former Bengals player, and we're so happy to have him back on the show rather. And we'll be hearing about the Javonte Woods Foundation in just a minute. Thanks for your time, Ickey. One of the things that a lot of fans say, Ken Anderson, best quarterback in Bengals history. There's not too much argument there. I think some of the favorites for some people is Boomer Esiason, and really that leadership quality that he has. Being around this team, hearing about Joe Burrow, potentially speaking with him and the coaches, et cetera. Are you seeing the same kind of a very similar type of leadership style, or just that kind of get on my back type of MVP mentality from Joe Burrow that you saw in Boomer Esiason?
Yeah, Joe Burrow has that, what you call that it factor. He just has it. It's nothing like Boomer or Ken Anderson. I think he's got more of what they didn't have. So he's a step above those guys. But those guys were great Bengal quarterback. But this guy here is going to be something special.
All right, Mr. Woods, I had to save my most important question for last, because if there's one thing I don't like, it's when people kind of run with narratives without really knowing the truth. And I wanted to give you a chance to potentially clear the air here. Do you even like cold cuts? What would be your top 3 deli meats?
Yeah, honey baked ham is my favorite, man.
There we go.
I enjoy cold cuts, man. Yeah, I enjoy them, man. Honey baked ham is my favorite.
Oh, there you go, honey baked ham. Usually that's a holiday one, but that's a solid one. That's a solid one. Well, we're gonna get your prediction for this week and just some thoughts on that in just a second. But as we've been saying, Mr. Woods, we want to hear about and share the great foundation that you are spearheading in honor of your son. So if you wouldn't mind, we're going to pull up, I know you're on the phone here, but we're going to pull up for our video watchers / listeners. We're going to pull up the website. And like I said, we're going to really rally to get some donations here on behalf of that to submit to the Javonte Woods Foundation. But tell us a little bit about it and the impacts that your great foundation is making in the community.
Well, it's called the Javonte Woods Foundation, and it's in honor of my son. I lost him 10 years ago to asthma, and so we started a foundation to raise money for asthma research and asthma education, because what I didn't know is when I started the foundation, there was nothing really out there for asthma, and so we took that on to start and try to raise money to educate people on how serious and severe asthma really is. Because before that, I didn't know asthma could kill till it took my baby from me. Yeah. And then come to find out asthma is the fastest growing disease in America, because it's the least amount of money, if not to find a cure, find a better way to treat it. And since 1980, asthma has risen 80% in the kids from the age being born to the age 19. And then 11 people a day die from asthma, man. That was unbelievable when I found that out. So we started the foundation to hopefully raise money, not only to, hopefully find a cure, but to educate too, because I think the biggest thing about asthma is the lack of education, because most people don't know that asthma can kill. Like I said, I didn't know until it took my baby from me. So, and it's very prevalent in the African American community as well. So we just want to get out and educate people on how serious and severe it really is.
Well, it's heartbreaking to know what you and your family have had to endure losing your son. If there is, a light in that at the end of that tunnel, though, you're doing some great community work in his honor and in the honor of your family, and we respect the heck out of that. And we're gonna do what we can to keep supporting the Javonte Woods Foundation. We do have an article up on CincyJungle.com highlighting all the great charities from past Bengals and current Bengals, providing links and all kinds of different things for folks to get involved. Now, do you have any, I know, we've still got some COVID things to traverse here. Are you doing any events, fundraising events or anything like that?
We're going to try to do our golf outing in May.
Okay.
But right now with the new variant spiking up real tough, it's hard to do anything with the social gathering.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
okay, understandable, but we'll definitely keep promoting that and awareness for the Javonte Woods Foundation. Mr. Woods, thank you so much for coming back on the show. Sorry, I was hounding you a little bit, but
that's okay, brother. It's okay. Good job. We got it in.
Well, I appreciate that, and I know it's a little late on your end. Quickly, if you wouldn't mind, do you have a prediction for this weekend as the Bengals go to Nashville to take on the Titans?
28-24 Bengals.
There you go. I love it. That's hey, you were the good luck charm last week. You're the good luck charm this week. I'm calling it again.
All right. Thank you, my man. I definitely appreciate that.
All right. Thanks, Ickey. Appreciate it. Have a good one.
You guys have a good one. Thanks,
all right.
brother.
Thank you, Ickey. What a guy.
Yeah. I mean, it's like for us, it's just like, Bengals fan dream here over the past handful of days talking with him. I feel a little bad. I was kind of hounding him a little bit, John, but we got him on here, and I gotta please ask our listeners again. This is not, if we get super chats or whatever tonight, or really maybe we'll just do it for the entire week or something. If we get super chats from you, this is not stuff that's going to go to John and I. This is going to go directly to that charity, as we did at the end of summer. All of that money that you all were very gracious enough to give for Anthony Munoz, for the Munoz Foundation, the Ken Anderson Alliance, and the Ken Riley Foundation, all of that went directly to those charities, and we want to make an impact, a sizable impact for the Javonte Woods Foundation. We want to keep doing that. So thank you to Mr. Woods, man. This is that was pretty awesome, man. He's pretty confident in those Bengals.
Yeah, I think there's a reason why they brought him out in the first place. When they announced it, I'm like, wait a minute, I'm pretty sure he scored in that last playoff win, and sure enough, he did, and it was in that exact uniform combination too, with the black jersey, white pants, and the orange socks. That everything is not that much of a coincidence, when you think about it. But shout out to Mr. Whisperer, John from Kentucky Vape Guy, and Socks for your super chat donations. Again, as Anthony said, that will go to the Javonte Williams Foundation. I myself, I take Montelicast every single night to treat my asthma, so that foundation means a lot for me as well. And everything that Ickey said, I echoed it 100%.
Yeah, so if you want to just leave a little something, if you want to go, like I said, $30, $31, whatever, for his jersey number and the Bengals breaking the curse, kind of an interesting answer to that. And I loved the cold cuts question, John. I loved the
always wanted to ask
him. Yeah, I love the cold cuts question. Wow, I'm kind of at a loss a little bit as to where to go from here. We're going to preview the.
We got more football, man.
I know we've got more. We got more football, and we're not doing a mock draft machine. We're not doing draft profiles. We're not doing free agency profiles. We are talking about the divisional round of the playoffs before we preview the Titans and some of the X's and O's and different things that we will be looking for this week. I want to remind folks that you can get this show as well as a number of other Cincy Jungle shows in a variety of different ways. And what those are, well, you gotta be a subscriber to a number of different avenues. And here we've got a little graphic for you here. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel click that and the little icon down there. Click that and then be notified when we go live, when new content is available. We're on iTunes. We're on Stitcher. We are on Spotify. We're on Google Podcasts. We're on all of the platforms, iHeartRadio as well. All of those are where this show and, of course, the other shows on the Cincy Jungle podcast channel are available. Please, please, please subscribe and support. Not only if you want to support our show, cool, but support the great work that also Coach Matt Minnick is doing in Coach Speak and Chalk Talk through the Cincy Jungle podcast channel, as well as Orange is the New Black. My God, John, Zim has been unbelievable with the Twitter Spaces. What was the one? I don't know if you saw it. The one the other day was 4 hours, 5 hours. He was rocking that thing. So if you're on Twitter, you got to go to Zim's Twitter Spaces. They are just hilarious. But at any rate, thank you all for the support to our show and the rest on the Cincy Jungle podcast channel. You can get the show on your favorite streamer. My goodness, John, I don't even know. We started off on an emotional recollection kind of level, and then we talked with Ickey Woods, and I'm kind of at a loss a little bit as to where to start. But I guess before we get to the Tennessee Titans, we've got a stat of the week that we and you would like to get to, so we will do that.
That was a cool little riff there. So, stat of the week this week is about Uno himself, Ja'Marr Chase, and a lot of the Bengals offense. It ran through Ja'Marr Chase, but as we saw, a lot of the passing concepts were pretty similar, and they were designed to beat some of those zone coverages that the Raiders deploy. It was a lot of curls, it was a lot of hitches, a lot of slants, and a lot of Joe Burrow's production came over the middle of the field, which is where the weak points in that defense was. But unlike that first Raiders game, you saw Ja'Marr Chase specifically beat man coverage on the outside. And it was interesting that a lot of Chase's production came outside of the numbers, and he actually ended up monopolizing a lot of Joe Burrow's passing yardages outside of the numbers and outside of the hashes. Specifically, 74 out of Joe Burrow's 115 yards outside of the middle of the field came through Ja'Marr Chase. I believe that was at least 6 or 7 catches. And I think he had at least 1 or 2 catches in every single quarter as well. And in the start of the first quarter, he started with a drop on the first drive and then came back with 3 other catches. And then at the start of the fourth quarter, he had a drop and then came back with 2 humongous first down conversions in the early fourth quarter that I believe led to another score. So, Anthony, just like Ja'Marr Chase in his first playoff game, like I know it's not a surprise anymore because of what he did as a rookie, but just to see that guy in this moment continue to just shine, especially against a defense that kind of held him and kept him in check the first time, it was just a marvel to see him at work.
It was awesome. I mean, for lack of better words, it was just awesome. And there were a couple of, I think there was an early drop, if I remember correctly. I think there were a couple in the game where there was a little bit of some bobbles and stuff, but he still came down with them. He still made the big plays. He still had the incredible footwork on the sideline and just continues to really be a catalyst for this team. And the rapport that we said when the Bengals drafted Joe Burrow and then subsequently drafted Ja'Marr Chase, we were talking about that rapport that they had together. We kind of felt like maybe it was going to be overblown because Chase didn't play football last year. They didn't play together the year prior and all of that. It's like it never stopped. I mean, and we feel that we kind of felt at the time that the rapport was overblown, like I said, and it just every week, especially as Joe Burrow gets more comfortable and more confident, and every week that Ja'Marr Chase gets more comfortable and more confident, there's just more and more plays. And I was a little disappointed in T. Higgins's performance. 1 catch on 4 targets. Some of those were contested catch opportunities and whatnot. But this is the reason why you have that 3-headed hydra at wide receiver, because one guy caught the touchdown, Tyler Boyd. The other guy had a quiet day in T. Higgins, and the other guy did all the yardage work in Ja'Marr Chase. So when one guy has a quiet day, the other guys are stepping up and doing different things. And oh, by the way, they didn't really need T. Higgins because CJ Uzomah stepped up nicely in this game too. So look, I mean, he just continues to, this has been a year of breaking streaks, breaking records, breaking franchise records, and all of that. And yet again, he has another record, a rookie record in the postseason, does Chase. And he just continues to be incredibly impressive. And what's scary, John, 21 years old, rookie year. I mean, when does the ascension stop? I mean, he's just, you know what I mean? I mean, where's the ceiling? I don't think it exists.
Yeah, and I get what you mean with Higgins as well, and I think it was great to see the offense go through Chase, but I think personally it was really cool to see both touchdowns come from the longest tenured offensive weapons on the team, in Tyler Boyd and CJ Uzomah, and just like the impressiveness of it, specifically that Boyd touchdown. Like, we're 40 minutes into the show, we haven't even talked about like the most impressive throw in Bengals playoff history from Joe Burrow, but like this is why this team can do something in these playoffs and then the playoffs to come, because they have a dominant passing offense. And just to real quickly, just touch on the defense. In years past, in playoff games, like there were times when Bengals defenses couldn't really make those key plays at the end of games, or just they would get blown over by whether it be like the Chargers or the Colts or whatnot. Like there have been times when Mike Zimmer led defenses, they underperformed with their talent. This game specifically, they had some rough moments against some passing concepts with Derek Carr, and I think Josh Jacobs played pretty well. But they stepped up when they absolutely needed to, and they made a lot of plays on the ball late in the game. Jesse Bates had by far his best game of the entire season, saved it for the final home game of the season in a contract year. And Jermaine Pratt, man, it wasn't just the interception at the end of the game. He made a handful of plays in coverage leading up to that play in the fourth quarter. He had one of his best games of all time. The defensive line, Trey Hendrickson with the strip sack, and Larry Ogunjobi and being in the right position to pick it up and gaining some yards after that. BJ Hill with a clutch sack in the fourth quarter that prolonged that final drive for the Raiders and moved them back a little bit. Sam Hubbard playing like 95% of the snaps because of all the injuries and still getting consistent pressure and still just doing everything that he possibly could. And then Chidobe Awuzie, Mike Hilton making plays on the ball. Mike Hilton had a phenomenal game in coverage. It wasn't a perfect performance from the defense, but that's the defense that you can hope for going forward, because when you make opportunistic opportunities and plays in coverage and those plays to end drives like that, that's really all you need when you have that offense on the other side of the ball.
Yeah, interesting comment from our buddy Jason Von Stein here. Crazy Chase looked so bad during the preseason. He really found himself out there. He really, I mean, I don't know if he just was taking preseason not so seriously. I think this is why, for anybody who does it, we cannot freak out about preseason stuff, preseason performance. The only thing you should be freaking out about in preseason is injuries. That's the only thing you should be freaking out about if you feel like you're well established at your most important positions. That's really what you got to be freaking out about. I'm just going to add a quick, real basic stat of the week. I talked about it a second ago, and it's a shameless pat on the back by me, a tweet here, but I just kind of wrote from week 14 to the wild card. Of course, he didn't play in the final week. 13 touchdown passes, 0 turnovers, John. 0 turnovers, and the Bengals are 4-1. The only loss being against the San Francisco 49ers in overtime. So since that Chargers ugly game where they were turning the ball over all over the place, Joe Burrow has not turned the ball over, and the turnovers that occurred in the San Francisco game were from Darius Phillips in the punt return game. So he not only has been playing out of his mind in terms of throwing for a ton of yards and a ton of touchdowns, he's just taking incredible care of the football. And that's why I said earlier, he's just kind of processing the field on a level that, I don't know. I mean, it's pretty crazy.
Wow. Not only has he not turned the ball over, he's barely put the ball in harm's way. Like, he only had one turnover-worthy throw against the 49ers. He had 5 big-time throws in that game. He's had 0 bad turnover-worthy throws ever since then. That includes the Broncos game when that secondary kind of bottled up the receivers. Like, obviously, the Ravens defense was atrocious and the Chiefs kind of got blown apart. And in this Raiders game, it was just, you can take what the defense gives you when you're able to read through your progressions at lightning quick speeds. And whenever there was pressure from Max Crosby and company, you saw that efficient pocket movement, to the ability to get outside. and then to find your guys down the field and not really force anything because you know where guys are going to be, you know where the vacant spots are going to open up in these coverages. And that is all about preparation. It's all about combining just his insane accuracy with his cerebral fortitude and just reading defenses in the pre-snap and post-snap phase. So it's not like he's on this incredible pace and he's getting away with lucky stuff. No, this is just legitimately efficient football that is sustainable.
The 2 tight window throws to CJ Uzomah in this last game. The one in the end zone, that was, that was just a tiny, tiny little area that he could fit that ball in. And the one down the seam, unbelievable throw and great concentration from Uzomah. I mean, he was covered relatively well in terms of where that ball trajectory was, but that seam throw was next level. I mean, that was just wow.
It was Drew Brees-esque, which is only fitting that Drew Brees is calling the game, and Drew Brees being Joe Burrow's idol, and you can see a lot of Brees' game in Burrow's and with his just pinpoint accuracy, and that throw is only there because like Burrow knows exactly when to throw it and where Uzomah is going to be on the field, and it's this insane chemistry that he's formed with these guys, and he's only played I think now 28 career games with all of them, so it's crazy.
I want to get to this real quick, but and thank you, William Perry, for the nice super chat that's going to go to the Javonte Woods Foundation saying, here's to a Bengal legend and to help. This is so wild to see. So glad for all the young fans that never saw an AFC championship yet. Won't be long now, guys. Just hang on. And William, thank you not only for that. We see you in here hanging out with us on the live chats all the time. Yeah. I don't know if it's the fridge, but we appreciate your support. And I know that Ickey appreciates that support there too. Appreciate that. And we'll be there are some others we want to get to as well. Before I did show Michaela's as well saying, thank you for the podcast. Love to listen to every episode. Appreciate that. You mentioned Drew Brees. Oddly enough, some people know that my day job, I do real estate stuff. And there was a big conference in San Diego wherein Drew Brees was the keynote speaker at that conference. I believe it was last November. I did not go. My parents attended, who are also real estate brokers. And it's funny. Drew Brees they asked him, of course, about football and who he sees winning. He said at the time that he really likes the Bengals. He really liked Joe Burrow. And he didn't know that this year would be the year for him. But he said that he foresaw them going, in the next handful of years being a really forceful team. And, like you said, lo and behold, he's the guy that's calling the game, calling the big win on Saturday. Really cool. Cool. A good super chat here from Vape Guy talking about our guys from Inside the Jungle, and Vape Guy's John from Kentucky. He is a big supporter of that show and our show. Good to hear from you, John, and thank you for that donation that's going to go to the Javonte Woods Foundation. And then, of course, we've got a couple others we will get to as well that pertain to previewing the Titans game. So let's get to that. We've had a jam-packed show, and it's been a hell of a fun one. Man, I guess we kind of say, well, where do we start? Well, I think we should probably start at the injury report and what's going on with the Bengals, because there were some big injuries in this game that were very concerning against the Raiders. Some bad news has come of it. Some good news has come of it, as well as some acquisitions. So I think we should probably catch some of the folks up on that. Right, John?
Yeah, so this week was all about who is going to play at defensive line, who is going to be out there, who's going to be out. We got news early in the week that Mike Daniels is not going to be available, I guess, for the very least for this week. And Larry Ogunjobi's not going to be available for the remainder of the playoffs. He is on injured reserve. So that left Trey Hendrickson, who suffered a concussion against the Raiders, Josh Tupou, who suffered an MCL injury against the Cleveland Browns in Week 18. Their statuses were up in the air this week, and we've had 2 practices so far. Great news for Trey Hendrickson, who was limited on Tuesday going through the concussion protocol. He was at least in, I guess, phase 3 of the 5-stage protocol process. He would practice full on Wednesday, so that means he's fully cleared for everything, and there's a 99.9% chance he's going to play on Saturday. Tupou, it was still limited with that knee injury, and he was originally listed as week to week, so it's still up in the air as to whether or not he's going to play. And the Bengals took action with that and signed 2 defensive tackles, one to the practice squad, Doug Costin, who is a young guy out of, I believe, the University of Miami up the road here, just north of Cincinnati. And they added Zach Kerr off of the Arizona Cardinals practice squad, and they signed him to the active roster. In order to do that, they waived 2020 free agent acquisition Xavier Su'a-Filo a day after they activated Su'a-Filo off of IR. So now they have bodies that they can go to behind both BJ Hill and DJ Reader, who are your projected starters at defensive tackle. And Anthony, honestly, it's just about depth at this point. I think the Bengals can be comfortable with BJ Hill starting in place of Larry Ogunjobi because honestly, like Hill's been a little bit more productive and consistent in some spots compared to Ogunjobi. And I think he's been the more consistent run defender. And against the Titans specifically, if you have Hill and Reader out there for the majority of your snaps, you're feeling pretty confident about going up against a Derrick Henry potentially led running game. It's just a matter of who are going to be the guys that are backing up those two at defensive tackle.
So here is the injury report, and we'll talk just a tiny bit more about that new acquisition, Zach Kerr, in just a second here. You see Hendrickson here, limited Tuesday, full practice Wednesday, as you mentioned, limited for Stanley Morgan, limited both days for Josh Tupou, full practice for backup defensive back Jalen Davis, full practice for Mike Hilton, who was having an ankle injury, left the game last week, and Sam Hubbard, full practice. Sam gutted it out last week, man. He just, wow, warrior last week. And then you see interesting stuff here. First of all, Naquan Jones, a valuable interior defensive lineman for Tennessee. He was full practice both days. Buster Screen, full practice. Look at the one who came up on Wednesday. Full practice Tuesday, and then an ankle issue forced him to not practice Wednesday. That is Janoris Jenkins, starting cornerback. So that's an interesting one for the Titans.
Yeah, I think Ian Rappaport tweeted out like a bunch of injury updates, including Trey Hendrickson practicing full and Jack Rabbit Jenkins not practicing Wednesday with an ankle injury. And then soon after that tweet, he said that it appears Jenkins is going to be fine. So that is interesting to pop up randomly and not practice at all with an ankle injury, but then apparently he's going to be okay to play in 3 days time. So I don't know if this was precautionary reasons for Tennessee or if there's something that they thought was not minor, but ends up being minor. But whatever the case may be, you're probably not going to see Jenkins at 100%. And that's interesting because Jenkins, I believe, missed a few games down the stretch for the Titans season. And they had former Cleveland Brown veteran Buster Screen play for Jenkins at cornerback. And he's listed on the injury report as well, I believe, with like a hamstring injury. And there's Zach Kerr for everyone watching on YouTube. A longtime veteran in this league. He was an undrafted guy who came in via like Delaware by the Indianapolis Colts. Bounced around to a few places, but ended up with the 49ers and the Cardinals this season. And, pretty good for Kerr. He witnessed, I guess, on the bench that shellacking that the Rams gave the Cardinals a few days ago. And now he's back in the playoffs with the Cincinnati Bengals.
Yeah. And, for a guy who's, been a rotational guy, bounced around a lot of different teams, not terrible statistics. And the Bengals could do a lot worse in terms of street free agent at this point to help him out on a rotational basis, it would seem. You see here, played 95 career games, 16 starts, 166 tackles, 9.5 sacks, 2 forced fumbles. So as a reserve guy, those aren't terrible numbers, in my opinion, John.
Yeah, and he's, I believe, still around like the 330-pound range.
Yeah,
this guy's a nose
dude.
tackle. He's always been a nose tackle. And to me, that means that this is more of an insurance signing in case Tupou can't play and back up DJ Reader, which is unfortunate for Tyler Shelvin, who, again, he just doesn't look like he's going to be much of a factor this postseason, but this would be an opportunity for him to play. But if that's not the case, and it's going to be either Kerr or Tupou as your main backup to DJ Reader, and then it's the question of does Doug Costin get elevated off the practice squad to back up BJ Hill, because they don't really have a true backup at that 3 technique spot.
Yeah. Thank you, Big Head Steve. No comment there, but a generous donation nonetheless through the super chats on YouTube. So appreciate that. We'll be getting that to the Javonte Woods Foundation. Appreciate that. We're going to be here just a little while longer. So please, 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 if you're able to get your donation in, we will accept that, and we'll be taking those and submitting a hopefully impactful and large donation to the Javonte Woods Foundation, just to say thanks to Ickey for being ruler of the jungle. Thanks to him being the good luck charm, and thanks for spearheading a really cool charity in honor of his son. That's a sad situation that they're trying to turn into a positive. So that's pretty cool. So thank you, Big Head Steve, for your donation there. John. Okay, so there's a lot of different things where we could go here. Where do you want to go with the how the Bengals can withstand the defensive line injury, since we were talking about some of these guys? Do you want to talk about the pass defense with some of the injuries in the secondary and issues in the Titans secondary? Where do you want to start here?
Well, I was doing some research with this and just looking at the Titans defense in general. I feel like, I don't know what your thoughts on this, but I feel like no matter who is at running back for the most part for the Titans, like the Bengals defense right now can't really stop the run. They're like 26th entering last week in like success rate allowed against the run. Josh Jacobs did a number on them in some of those situations. The Titans, regardless of Derrick Henry's availability, have been able to run the ball pretty well, and that's the base of their offense. So I feel like the Titans are going to get theirs when they run the ball, and they're going to end up putting up some points at home. I feel like it's up to the Bengals offense to really just put it to the Titans defense and to really showcase all of their receivers and explosion and whatnot. And I was looking at some of the numbers from a season-long total. Both of the Bengals and Titans defense are nearly identical in like the most meaningful metrics. It's just that after their respective bye weeks, the Bengals had a bye week in week 10, Titans had a bye week in week 13. The Bengals got a little bit worse because they couldn't really stop the run in that stretch, and the Titans have gotten significantly better defending the pass. And I'm like, that's crazy, because they have really good safeties in Byard and Amani Hooker, but their cornerbacks are basically league average guys. You know, Christian Fulton and Jackrabbit Jenkins, like they're not necessarily shutdown guys. And then I saw the quarterbacks that the Titans have faced in recent weeks: Trevor Lawrence, Ben Roethlisberger, Jimmy Garoppolo, Tua Tagovailoa, Davis Mills.
Yeah.
And apparently Davis Mills is the best one of all five of them, because he had 300 yards and almost beat them in a game that the Titans needed to have to get the 1 seed. So I don't know what to make of this Titans defense right now. I obviously they're talented and they're playing well as a unit, but I don't know if they're being propped up by just playing really bad competition. But I just look at that personnel and I'm thinking, this is why you have 3 elite receivers in Joe Burrow. Like, you need to be able to put up points against this defense.
You're going to need to put up points. And I think, there's a mindset of, if you're on the Tennessee side of the fence, not only do you want to run the ball and impose your will, especially on your home stadium, and that's the strength of your football team, obviously, is running the football. You want to do that. But the old adage of you do that and you keep the exciting players on the opposite team's offense off the field. That's kind of what they're probably going to try and achieve. And that's the mindset, I would assume, or part of the mindset this week, I would assume, for the Titans fans. We've got an interview with Davey Hudson tomorrow. So who's the host of the Believe in Titans podcast, along with Denard Walker, former Titan, who was actually on this show a little while back, I think last year when the Bengals faced the Titans. He was on our show. And then I think he also chatted with you guys on D&H, right? So really, really cool to be talking with him, and we're going to find out more about that. But my point is, and this was kind of a topic that Colin Cowherd said today, and it was like, yeah, he's voicing the things that I'm thinking about. He was talking with Jeff Schwartz on his show on Wednesday, and they were talking about how, the Bengals offense it's not just it can be methodical and long sustained drives and punch it in the end zone or kick a good field goal and kind of continue to build on your lead or hang in the game. But it's also, they could score in really any amount of plays on a drive. It can be 1 play, it could be 3 plays, it could be 7 plays, it could be 10 plays. We've seen it all this year. So I don't know, while I think it makes sense that the Titans want to run the ball and use that keep Burrow off the field mentality, I don't know that that's going to be, a cure-all for absolutely everything in terms of avoiding the Bengals offense scoring this year. I will say this is why, though, if the Bengals are going to be off the field for a little while or for most of the game or a good chunk of the game, and the Titans are going to try and control the clock, this is why that stat I pointed out earlier of Joe Burrow not turning the football over reigns kind of supreme, because drives could be at a premium, and you don't want to be turnover prone or have some of these issues that have not plagued you over the past month and a half start popping up in the divisional round of the playoffs. So that's kind of some of my first impressions in terms of the Tennessee run game and their approach there.
Yeah, and if there's one thing the Titans do well, though, it is forced turnovers. Like both of their safeties are ball hawks. Like Byard, I think at this point is just a more consistent version of Jesse Bates, and I mean that in the most complimentary fashion because Bates hasn't been that good this year. And Amani Hooker, honestly, like he's a third-year guy out of Iowa, and he's done a lot. And just the way that they use those safeties is interesting. Bengals fans who got his account back, by the way, I think like 10 minutes ago on Twitter, he posted a graphic about just the different coverage schemes that the Titans use, and they are very, very balanced. This is not necessarily a Raiders defense where they like to go into this cover 3 looks predominantly. The Titans, they're below average in terms of cover 3 usage, but they're above average in cover 4, and they like to go in those split safety shells. And I was looking at some of the defenses that the Titans faced earlier, and they did not do well against Kyler Murray, Josh Allen, even Mac Jones had his way against them, but they really shut out Patrick Mahomes when the Chiefs were really fighting themselves. So maybe you can just excuse that. But the one game that stood out to me was against the Rams when they went to Los Angeles the week after that Derrick Henry was placed on IR, and they just took it to Sean McVay and Matt Stafford. And I watched that game, and it was like over after the first 16 times that Stafford dropped back to pass, and Stafford just looked completely lost. The route concepts that the Rams were running just had no spacing involved at all. And you saw a healthy balance of single high looks and split safety looks. And Byard was honestly the guy who was dropping down from the split safety looks to be more in the box and to match some of these coverages in man coverage and have Hooker be the single high guy. And Byard really fooled Stafford on multiple occasions by dropping down. He ended up getting like a pick 6 in that game. And that's something that Joe Burrow has to be cognizant of. And that's something where you can say that the Bengals have an advantage where they're not going to be fooled by some of those disguised coverages in the post-snap phase. So this is definitely a very balanced Titans defense from the secondary. But, I mean, it's going to be a story until the Bengals offensive line improves. Like, how much can the Titans do in terms of rushing the passer? How much can that slow down the Bengals offense? Because while they don't have necessarily a truly dominant guy, like the closest thing that they have to that is Jeffrey Simmons, and he is a stud. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that he's not good. Like,
great player,
he's ascending into that like Chris Jones type tier, just those tall, explosive defensive tackles, and he can wreck a game, sure. Like, but I feel like the Titans defense in general is built a lot like the Bengals defense, where they have a lot of solid players. They don't really have a glaring weakness to exploit. And just they have a really solid defensive line, and all 4 of those guys can get after it. And they use a lot of stunts, a lot of twists to generate pressure. They don't really blitz like 6 or more guys very often. So it really is up to like that right side of the offensive line and Isaiah Prince and Akeem Adeniji. Can they just solidify their communication with passing off guys and remaining consistent in their pass sets? Because they got Harold Landry and Danico Autry that mainly come off of that side, and they love to use the late stunts. And that's like that's the main weapon that the Titans have to slow down the Bengals passing offense. And if the Bengals passing offense gets slowed down, then you have a formula for success for the Titans to get control of the game.
Mr. Whisper sent and I wasn't ignoring you, Mr. Whisper. I was actually saving this one for our chat here a little bit, not only in terms of talking about what happened last week, but how that translates to this week. And I think that this is a good segue here, asking about, how was the offensive line in your opinions, namely Price. My thought with it, John, is, when you look at it from kind of a holistic perspective, 2 sacks and Max Crosby, Yannick Ngakoue, nice game from Jonah Williams. Holistically, you would say, the offensive line did what they should do, or they did enough, right? But you look at the issues in the run game. You do look at Max Crosby getting a sack. I think that was on a situation where he came back inside. But
yeah,
it was enough last week in terms of Prince. Again, just there's some struggles there. There's some inconsistencies and issues on that right side of the line. And I don't know. You're talking about Simmons and others on the Titans defensive line. What do you think about the offensive line this week, namely that questionable right side line, especially now Su'a-Filo's gone, right? So,
yeah, I mean, Su'a-Filo wasn't saving them necessarily. Like,
no,
he hasn't played in 4 months, and they weren't going to throw him out there now. But that's just a question of depth. And like Jackson Carman has solidified himself for sure as the first guard off the bench. And Yeah, Isaiah Prince didn't necessarily give up a sack, but he also had his rough moments against Max Crosby, which they should have accounted for. They should have expected. Max Crosby is going to make a lot of guys look foolish, but Crosby did kind of get frustrated a little bit there. I think he said some choice words to fans after maybe like an offsides or something like that, or maybe whatever the case was. Crosby got home once, but Prince did enough to keep him at bay despite losing pretty clearly a few times. And that was a lot attributed to just Burrow getting the ball out pretty quickly and just his general savviness in the pocket. And I wonder like how much of that is going to be a part of like the base of the Bengals game plan. Are they going to continue to go out of empty and get the ball out quickly to try to sustain some of these drives? Or do we see more hole shots like we saw against the Chiefs, because the Chiefs again are a too high defense, and that's a lot of what the Titans like to do. They like to do a lot more than the Raiders, so you're going to have more of those opportunities to get some vertical routes down the sideline and obviously up the seams. We saw that work a few times against the Raiders. It's the question of how much they try to be explosive against this secondary because of the coverages that they run, but they can only do that if the offensive line does give them enough time. And I think in comparing this defensive line to the Raiders, yeah, Max and Yannick are really dominant off the edge, but again, there's not a general weakness on this Titans defensive line, and they all work really well together. And I'm not 100% confident that Prince and Adeniji are going to hold up the entire game. I think you're going to have, multiple sacks, and maybe one of them, it could potentially kill a drive for the Bengals. And that's just something that they have to account for.
Yeah, it just can't be of the sack fumble variety. It kind of stinks that we're talking about kind of having to roll with those punches in terms of sacks and quarterback hits, et cetera. But that's just how this year has been. Burrow's been sacked a lot, either by his own ad-libbing back there or issues along the offensive line. You just got to kind of roll with it this year and hope that the good plays outweigh those few bad ones by the offensive line, and that they don't kill drives, they don't turn into turnovers, etc. So we're going to be here another couple minutes. So please, if you would be so inclined, get those super chats in there on if you're watching us on YouTube. If you want to submit another donation through a different way, hit us up at the obinsider@gmail.com or on John or I's Twitter, either direct message or a notification, and we'll find a way for you to be able to donate to the Javonte Woods Foundation a different way if you're not watching through YouTube. But we appreciate the support of our show and, of course, that great charity. John, let's start kind of wrapping it up. We're going long. We talked about Derrick Henry a little bit. Last week, we kind of said, well, this may be a good, in some ways, this may be a good way to get Joe Mixon going. This may be a good week going back to what he did against Las Vegas, the weather, being at home, all that kind of stuff. This could be a good Mixon week. It turned out to be a pretty bad Mixon week, not so much because of him, but there was just, I think the Raiders were keying on him a bit, and the offensive line just in the run game was not getting what they needed to get out of it. I have the opposite mindset going into this one as as I did last week. I just kind of feel like this is Burrow and the receivers and Uzama, and you kind of got to live and hopefully not die by that game plan. And if Mixon gets you some extra yards, get you some touchdowns, whatever, that's kind of an added bonus. But I think especially as we look at how the Bengals have been winning games this past month and a half, you got to kind of continue to ride your quarterback's hot hand, and the running game is going to take a back seat.
Pretty much. And I think there was a lot of complaints, specifically with the end of the Raiders game, that maybe they gave the ball to Mixon like one too many times. But even in that game, like Mixon only had 7 second half carries, and like half of them were successful. So if there was any hints of conservatism against the Raiders, it was because the Bengals had a lead. And I think you can expect that to happen again if the same happens in this game. If the Bengals are up by 10 points in the fourth quarter, it's not like they're going to continue to just ignore the running game, even though that the run defense of the Titans is their bread and butter. They're really good against the run, and has nothing to do with the opponents that they face. They're just really solid in that area. But you're going to see Burrow come out slinging just like he did against the Raiders, and hopefully this time for them, they find the end zone more often. Like the Titans have a pretty decent red zone defense, and like we said, they're pretty opportunistic. They're good at scheming up disguised coverages, and it's really up to Burrow to just to key in on that preparation. Like that's one of the strengths, not the only strength, but it's one of the strengths of his game, to be able to see things as they happen and to make those good decisions on the fly. And if he does that, then that's taking away an advantage for the Titans defense, and maybe you can finish some of those red zone drives.
Well, let's get to keys and predictions. We've kind of talked about some of the positional groups and offensive defensive game plan approaches. What are kind of some of the key matchups? And I don't know what I think I know what you're going to do with your prediction based on how some of
what do you mean about that?
Well, we'll see. We'll see. Just some key players, key matchups in your prediction in this game.
Yeah, I want to see T. Higgins do a little bit better in the second career playoff game. I think that's going to be important. I think you're going to have Christian Fulton match up with his former collegiate teammate in Jamar Chase. There'll be a nice LSU reunion, but those guys are both really physical, and you might have T. Higgins on an injured Janoris Jenkins, or maybe even Buster Screen. I don't know if the Titans really have their cornerbacks follow receivers, but I think T. Higgins having a good game will do wonders to get more explosion out of the offense. And really something we haven't talked about, like the Titans, they don't have slouches at receivers either. Like Julio Jones, he's at least playing, and that's presence that you have to account for. And AJ Brown, a physical specimen of his own right. Like Chidobe Awuzie has to play really well, and I don't know if he's going to follow either of those guys, but those are physical guys that really get your hands on you. And how well that Awuzie matches up in man coverage, it can really limit Ryan Tannehill's game and just his effectiveness throwing the ball. So another great Awuzie game would definitely limit the Titans offense. And if they have to go through Henry the entire day, then I think the Bengals pass enough and should be enough to get them over the hump.
I would say a couple of key guys. Eli Apple, keeping an eye on him because of those receivers you mentioned. And, he had a good back half of the season. I think he had a penalty or two last week. I know he had at least one last week against the Raiders, and just, a little bit of a struggle last week. So he's one guy I'm watching. And BJ Hill, increased role now with Larry Ogunjobi out. The Bengals had an amazing rotation going, and it kept both guys pretty fresh. It maximized their snaps and their effectiveness of their snaps, being Ogunjobi and Hill. Now Hill is kind of the guy, and it seems like he came in all the time. It was, when Ogunjobi wasn't making a big play, Hill would come in and make the big play. Happened last week too. So, I'm interested, really, really interested to see what he does in an increased role now that Ogunjobi is out of that line. Those are two guys I'm watching. I am going with, believe it or not, I'm going with the Bengals winning this game. I will say this now. I know, we don't want to look ahead too far or whatever. I think that as I sit here today, maybe if they do win and by how much or whatever, I'll change my tune. I do think that this round is probably the cap or the ceiling for this team getting past this round. And based on who they might play, that's just a little bit of a gut feeling I have at this point. I don't want to limit this team. I mean, they've shut us up and proved us wrong a bunch of times already this year. But I do think that this is I wouldn't say it's an easy game by any stretch, but I do think that they can potentially take it. And it's going to take a lot. It's going to take a clean game, and it's going to take some big plays by that offense. I'm going to say. I'm going to say 30-26.
That's a lot of Randy Bullock field goals right there.
Well, his calves are in better shape now. So I'm assuming he's going to hit a few.
That would be so fitting, though, if this was just a back and forth battle between McPherson and the guy who was replaced by him. 100%.
Yeah.
No, like we talked about in just the road to the playoffs, like this is the path for the Bengals to get to the AFC Championship game. This is the path of least resistance. Yeah. And maybe people have taken that a little bit too far and have started to underrate the number one seed in the AFC.
Yeah.
And there are definitely some warts with the Titans, don't get me wrong, but they're here for a reason. They've been able to win ugly in a lot of games. Ryan Tannehill, he's not great, but he gets the job done in certain spots. And this is the return of Derrick Henry. And a lot of talk about the defensive line it's really going to be up to Logan Wilson and Jermaine Pratt. A lot of Henry's runs come on cutback lanes and just guys not getting there in time. And once you have Henry in the open field, there's not a lot of guys that can tackle him in those situations. There's probably more ways that the Titans can win this game than the Bengals for some factors. I'm definitely think that the Bengals have a good chance to win, but I really want to see how the Bengals handle those twists and stunts from a very talented Titans defensive line. I don't think that Derrick Henry can win this game all by himself, but I think the Titans receivers are being a little bit underrated compared to the Bengals secondary. I think this game is going to be 100% close. The spread is 3.5. That's definitely accurate. The Titans have at least been here before. I think it's going to be really close. It's going to be in the 20s. I'm going to say 21-20 Tennessee.
21-20 Tennessee. John officially does not pick the Bengals, just so we're all clear, so we all know. I know there's a little bit of a, I don't know.
No, that's my honest analysis.
I know. I don't blame you for going that way. The Bengals have had a couple of big wins against Tannehill in recent years. 2018 comes to mind when it was still with the Dolphins, and the Bengals had that crazy game where they came back in that exciting start of the season. And then, of course, last year when Joe Burrow was still healthy, they took it to Ryan Tannehill. But like to your point, when they get Derrick Henry rolling and they get going, he is able to utilize play action. They can do some damage for sure. So it should be a fun game regardless, and a close game. I agree with you on that. Let's drop the mic and get out of here. We went long, but we had an amazing show. Basking in the afterglow of the Bengals wildcard win, talking with Ickey Woods and his experience as ruler of the jungle. Go support the Javonte Woods Foundation. And John and I talking about Titans. What do you got for us as we get out of here, John?
So a lot of great things happened Saturday night. It was a memorable night that the city of Cincinnati will never forget, but I don't think anything more important happened. I don't think anything more important that happened other than what happened outside of the stadium with one Jerry Mills, who is a diehard Bengals fan. He believes he lives in Dallas as an ER nurse, and he notices Ed Fernandez, who is a lifelong Raiders fan, have some issues outside of the stadium, and then unfortunately collapsed. And Jerry Mills, with his experience in the medical field, he knows CPR and he administers it to him. And fortunately, he saved his life. And Fernandez, I believe, is still recovering in the University of Cincinnati Medical Campus, and I believe he has heart surgery on Thursday. But Jerry Mills, Bengals fan, saves a Raiders fan's life right before the game, and just shout out to Mills, and deserves all the credit in the world for the heroic act that he did.
Yeah, it was awesome. And I didn't get all of the details. Was it a heart attack situation that or just some kind of I heard he had collapsed, right? And then yeah, okay. Well, speedy recovery and really cool story there, and happy it worked out for the positive. Thanks for bringing that back to attention, John. That was a good story. I did see that late yesterday. I don't have a lot. I guess on a little somber note, I feel pretty bad for a guy like Larry Ogunjobi for that his season ended prematurely, especially after a career year from him, 7 quarterback sacks, and he's been a good addition to this Bengals defensive front. He's made a big impact, and I was really bummed to see him not only get injured last week, but hear the news that his season is done. And it looked that way kind of immediately when they got the card out for him. So, I feel pretty gutted for him. He's put some stuff out on social media. I don't know that he's going to be back for the Cincinnati Bengals next year. He has played himself into a good contract, though, as a free agent next year. He deserves it. He comes back as a Bengal player selfishly. I understand if he goes and maybe gets a more lucrative contract somewhere, but he was one guy that I just felt, feel really good for the alumni, the Bengals alumni, and that locker room. But that's a guy that unfortunately I feel kind of gutted for a little bit.
Yeah, well, at least I want to say he probably has a better time here than the other football team in the state of Ohio. So at least he had this experience. And if he doesn't come back, all the best wishes. But I believe Mike Hilton did say, like, I kind of want him back here, so they're gonna have a decision to make in March.
By the way, you said this earlier. Our buddy James, is it Rapien? I thought it was Rapien.
It's Rapien.
Yeah, I was like, what? I was like, gosh, we had him on the show. I'm like, did I just butcher his name? Oh my gosh, I thought he had told me that it was Rapien, but was that? It looked like a fun time there Friday night when you all were there. Saw some familiar faces, so hope you guys had a great time. Looked like it, you did.
Yeah, I mean, locked on is locked on, whatever. But a lot of people are asking us about OBI merch, so maybe we have to get on that. Okay,
well, we'll have to get something going there. I am not a graphic designer or a shirt designer or anything like that, so we'll have to enlist some help, I think, on that front. But John, thank you. This has been an amazing show. I'm glad you had an amazing time at the game, man. Sorry we went long, but it's been a great show.
When you win playoff games, man, there is no too long of a show.
That's right. Well, thanks, everybody. Go support the Javonte Woods Foundation. Just one last rally cry. If you want to shoot us in the next, 30 seconds, another super chat in the YouTube to help support that, please do. Or contact John or myself via Twitter, through Cincy Jungle, via email, theobinsider@gmail.com. We'll probably do, like I said, we'll probably keep it rolling. We've got a couple of other episodes coming this week. We've got the Titans preview with Davey Hudson of Believe in Titans. We've got an Orange is the New Black and OBI crossover roundtable listener Q&A. We're going to try and get Matt. We're going to drag Matt into that, kicking and screaming. We got to get him in there. But we've got a roundtable scheduled for Friday for folks. So maybe we'll just keep this rolling to continue to support the Javonte Woods Foundation. But get in touch with us if you want to support, if you're not watching through YouTube and you want to support a different way. John, thank you. And we'll be talking this week, my friend.
Talk to you on Friday.
All right.